Okay.
Oh, I'm starting. Hello again, everybody. So today we're going to talk about how are we going to run a risk incident exercise in the training week, and in the actual summit week, how are we going to do a post-mortem on it. So we're going to, we have to talk about what platforms we can use, who to invite, what to do, basically. And the floor is yours. I have posted some of the previous notes in the chat window. Yeah.
Cool.
Go ahead.
What I did, but actually, before I jump into that, for the other guys on the call, what's your views? How are you seeing this running? What kind of
we can't really hear you much right now.
Thoughts on this topic?
So we previously said we would have tabletop exercises, and we would have different groups of people simulating different personas, like marketing team, the executives, security team, DevOps, or etc.
Yeah. So the big question is, what level do you want to do it at? Do you want to go technical? Do you want to go governance?
Well, I think you can cover, right? So look, we can cover the multiple parts, right? Because the reality is, right? So let's say that we are the 5 organizers here, right? Let's say we got 5 organizers where one of us represents. So let's say I represent the attacker, right? And then Dida represents the security team, Michael represents management, you represent IT, right? And I forgot, yes, NA, because that's what she called, right? Represents the customer, right? So basically, I think the logic is that, and maybe this could be the group, right? So I think the interesting part here is that each of us can now ask questions, right? Which are basically aligned to what your persona is. Right?
Exactly.
Can we take a step back? It could be me being confused, but I thought this came about because we wanted to kind of develop some sort of journey roadmap training for security champions. So,
yeah,
or have I missed the plot?
In 2 different sessions, one with security champions and one with cloud security. So we evolved the ideas, and it's
you're right.
So
maybe on that one, so one of the topics I still want to make sure we do well is the creation of kind of a proposed roadmap for security champions that coming to the summit, right? So maybe let's just talk about that, because I think that's important.
So the security champions we're talking about, they're going to be mainly development app security focus, yeah?
Well, look, my definition of security champion is that they should work for the company, they should have a heartbeat, right? And they should care about security, and they should be everywhere. So I don't think it's just developers, right? I want security champions in a way, even in marketing teams, right? But let's say, at least on operations, on DevOps. So I would say that.
I agree, but I think if you try to encompass all of that in one simulation, you're going into almost setting up an entire AR game with an ongoing campaign with multiple roles, which would be fantastic.
Oh yeah. Well, let me be clear. This is not about this instant response scenario. I don't think it's for security champions. I think they can participate.
Right.
But let's keep that separate, right? I think the idea came from one of the security champions conversations, right? And I think it would be quite useful for them. But the idea of doing an incident planning exercise, a tabletop exercise, I think that's for multiple. It's actually a wide audience. So yes, the security champions can participate, but they should either go to the area that they focus on. So if somebody's development, he goes for the developer team. Somebody's security, they focus on the security team.
So are you suggesting multiple parallel sessions dealing with the incident with cross communication between them?
Yeah. Multiple workout rooms. Yeah, that's the idea. So let me just finish with the security champions. So yes, so the security champions, I think that, and by the way, you guys start to see those little mini kind of infographics that the design team can create. And if you start to see them popping up, right? That I think I put some of them on the main channel, and especially on the management channel. the idea is to do a whole pile of them. So for example, imagine a security champion little infographic that says, if you are a security champion, the Security Summit is the place to come, and here are the 10 sessions that we recommend you to go, right? So we recommend you to go to these 3 because they're development focus on SecOps, these 2 which are about hacking, these 2 about risk, this 1 about worldly maps, this 1 about threat modeling, and there you go, there's your week. And I think that's kind of what we should do from a security champion point of view. Michael, did that address your question?
Yes.
Cool. So the other topic is this idea that a good thing to do with a distributed group of individuals, it's actually like these tabletop exercises. It's like this incident simulation where we almost gather, ask knowledge, right? And try to get information about, how would the particular group react in certain situations. So imagine a situation, let's simulate this, right? Let's say it's the 5 of us, right? So we are, in a way, the organizers of this session. Each of those represent
say a department.
Yeah, like I said now, right? So I can represent the attacker, Dida represents security, Michael represents management, you represent
customer. Don't forget the customer.
Yeah, no, customer was yes and A, right? And then so what I'm thinking of this, right, is that let's say there's 20 people that turn up. We create a breakout room for each of these personas, right? And then what our job is through to the multiple phases of the exercise is to ask each one a set of questions. And the question is literally, what do you do next? What should I do next based on the current situation?
I'm really interested in the idea of having the attacker there.
Oh yeah, because the attacker, and this is where the persona is very important, right? So the point here is the attacker will have an agenda, right? Mm-hmm. The interesting question is, do we share that agenda beforehand or not, right? So that could be the case, because sometimes it's important, right? If you know the attacker's agenda, right, then maybe you're going to respond differently, right? So for example, if my agenda is to make money, right, I will make a number of decisions based on if my agenda is revenge, or for example, if my agenda is to keep it being anonymous at any case, it's going to be different to say, I'm happy to be exposed a little bit, but I want to make as much money as I could.
We can introduce the agenda halfway through the exercise.
Yes, correct. Yeah, where it makes sense. In fact, the agenda will be clearer, right, as it turns up, right? Or it could be a case where, for example, in this case, I could share the agenda only with the breakout room that is talking about the attacker. And I guess the nice thing of this is also, like, if we ask a room to say, what should an attacker do next? Again, by having an agenda for the attacker, that limits the kind of stuff that they will do, right? Because, and also the skill set. They say, okay, yeah, an attacker would do that, but this attacker won't because he doesn't have those skills, or he doesn't have, that infrastructure, or he doesn't have that knowledge, right? Or it is not motivated in that, for example.
So you almost want a team profile for each group, then just kick off the scenario, lock them in their breakout rooms, and bring them back every now and then. Yeah.
In fact, let me show you something we did recently, which is really cool, that I'll ask the team to create this for this. Here we go. So let me share my screen. All right, can you see this now? Can you see it?
Yes.
So we did this for a project that we were doing where we wanted to have, the question was, who's our audience? Right? Like who are we talking to? Who are we selling to? Right? So I got the team to not just have, a description. I said, no, let's think about it. Like, so are we selling to a security engineer? Okay, that's what it looks like. Are we selling to a developer, a senior developer? That's what it looks like. Are we selling to the IT admin? And then we have the end user, right? So the cool thing of this is that when you think about the product you're developing, now you need to think about, will this person be able to do that? So a good example is we talk about, we're going to put a Swagger page for consuming our API. In the beginning, there was a conversation, well, but that's very complicated. Who can use a Swagger page, right? the API. And then we said, well, actually, Matt, a developer, and by the way, these are real people, right? These are actually, that's the, and they all gave us permission to do this, right? But in this case, Matt will have the knowledge, right? And if we're selling to Matt, it's okay for him to just be given a license key and a Swagger and a GitHub repo because he'll know what to do with it. So we could try to create one of these for the personas that we have so that we get to determine, for example, what is the skill set of management? What is the skill set of the security team? Is it like a two-person security team? Is it a full base, 10, 20, 50, 100 people security team, right? Is it a full staff IT or is it an outsource IT? So we can think about and so I think we should think about the scenario that we want to cover. And then we should think about what is the persona for each of the individuals that we then will act as part of our simulation.
And we need to decide on the entity that we're trying to protect.
Yeah.
What type of, is it a national?
Yeah, exactly.
Or is it a commercial company? What is it?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so let's start there. What type of entity are we trying to protect?
Well, maybe start with the scenario. What's the scenario?
No, you need the entity first.
Yeah, I think
You can't do the scenario before you've got the target.
Okay. What do you guys think?
I'm almost thinking we should do the threat modeling workshop first and then take the output of that and say, well, here's our threat profiles. Here's our persona non grata. Here's the people that we work with. And now we're going to do a tabletop exercise with all of these different profiles.
That's not a bad idea, right? To actually do a threat model on the scenario a day or two before that actually creates the brief. That's actually quite nice because it means that we basically say the pre-read for the session is kind of the output of the threat model, right?
But it gives you the full beginning, middle, end because you do the pre-read as the threat model. Let's generate the pre-read there. You've got the middle, which is the tabletop, probably the longest bit, where people are stepping into the different roles, departments, whatever it is, including the attacker. So you get their reactions to things that are happening. And then you've got the post-mortem afterwards where you bring in another team, give them the outputs and say, okay, tell us what actually happened.
Love it. So, yeah. So actually, well, guess what you said. So the threat model happens on the first week, right? The usage response happens on the second week, right? And the post-mortem happens during the summit.
Is this the threat modeling session that James is running on Monday? Or is this separate?
No, so this will be a threat modeling session. Although if you want, James, we can recycle yours. But
I'm quite happy to use this as mine or run it separately or whatever.
Yeah, it's a practical. Yeah, it's practical. That's fine. So Monday, and it's this Monday, between 2 and 4, we have the threat modeling session, which we will create a company persona and understand their threats and threat model. And then the second week on Wednesday evening, we have the incident scenario exercise where we'll come up with a particular attack and we're gonna do incident response basically. And in the actual summit week, let me find the slot where we put it. It's day 5, 19th of June. We have 2 to 4 to do the post-mortem.
cool.
Which is quite, it's a week and a bit later than the actual exercise. It should be okay.
That's fine. Yeah, so the only thing, James, I can only join from 3 tomorrow on Monday. But you can take it from the beginning.
That's okay. All I'm planning to do is throw a company in and then introduce people to different threat modeling techniques. So I'm lazy. I'll get other people to build the personas we're going to use, list out the threats, list out capabilities. All of that can be handed off to the participants.
And we can maybe use the document you just showed, Dennis, as a base, and we can build on that. We can delete the personal details of actual people.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And but I think we should agree on the scenario here, right? I think we should use this session to just come up with, like you said, the industry, the scenario, the technology stack, because or else you can go on all sorts of tangents, right?
Okay, there's one I've really wanted to see used in testing and never had the chance. Compromise of a root AWS account.
That's good. Well, that was one of the ones I had here, compromise of AWS account.
The root account. Everyone's now locked out. You've not got control of your service. What do you do? Because the customers are still using it. It's still active and live.
Why do you have the root account in the beginning?
Because
Well,
people do.
I can tell you that I've dealt with an incident that was exactly, well, it wasn't locked, but one of the devs created a key that was on his laptop, right, that had root privilege, right, in, you know, some production.
They were made redundant, maybe.
No, they weren't. We don't do that thing. But yeah, but okay, I like it. Root account compromise, right? Basically, actually, it starts with AWS key compromise, right?
What industry? What industry? Have you got the personas? Are you going to pick an industry?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the question then is, yes, which industry?
Yep.
Fintech? No, startups are too easy.
But they're the ones that use root AWS accounts.
They're not the only ones who use root AWS accounts.
But it's more likely.
I think we should go for the Goldilocks kind of thing. Like, not somebody with no security team, not like a super elite security team, you know, like, you know, maybe, you know, what about like, you know, $500 million turnover, right? You know, 500 million or 200 million turnover, you know, 10 security staff right across the board, right? So basically they got some stuff, you know, not
a whale or a minnow, somewhere in
Sorry?
between. Not a whale or a minnow. So 1,000-man company.
Yeah, exactly. So you have 1,000-man company, right? You got, you know, 300 million turnover, 500. What's a good number for that?
I'm liking Yes and A's suggestion.
What was it? Sorry.
O365 Services Company, managed service provider.
Ooh. All right.
There's a good angle in that, right?
Doesn't necessarily have to be O365. You could go AWS Cloud for some product they're delivering, but you've still got that MSP angle to it.
Yeah, that's quite cool actually, because we can. So, okay, the only reason I would say I would prefer to do AWS keys is just because I have a bit more experience, and we can actually make it more real world. If it was Azure keys, I have to say that, you know, I you know, I don't have a lot of experience on it. What you guys have is great, right? But what about? I really love that. The Office 365 is good because, you know, it then touches Azure, so you get that too. But why don't the scenario is Office 365 that also uses AWS, which also contains customer data on AWS.
Do integrated login, integrated authentication, Office 365 AWS. Azure AD can cover that.
Yes, because actually we use that, and that's my favorite feature these days.
Domain admin compromise on Azure AD. That's given them the whole company, but to get them out, you've got to do fairly drastic things. It will be really interesting to see how people deal with that, because I've got no idea how I'd respond.
Yeah.
And what industry now?
Sorry?
We're saying this is a cloud services provider, but what are they? What industry are they? Is it horizontal services they're giving? They're giving across industry. They're providing to everybody all sorts of clients. Because the other bit is how you deal with the clients, isn't it?
Well,
SME focus.
Yeah.
So not a particular industry, but generally dealing with smaller businesses.
Fine. So you've got hundreds of customers to deal with, basically.
Yeah, hundreds of small customers.
Yeah, not just one or two big ones.
Yeah.
Bit like the Adobe outage that's just happened.
Because I guess,
pretty much exactly like that.
Huh?
There was a big outage with Adobe this week. Creative Cloud, Marketing Cloud, all went down.
Yeah.
And it was basically when you tried to check your subscription key, it failed. So I don't think that was a compromise, but it'd be that's you know that they've got you know thousands of customers.
Yeah. No, I think that is really cool, because and I guess, okay, so the scenario here. So let's look from the attacker point of view, right? So I would say the scenario of the attacker is he's after either data dumps, right? Actually, or I would even say Bitcoin mining, right? You know, come on, that's still the most realistic attack that you get today, right?
Isn't it personal data? If he's giving, you're giving kind of, if this is a Office 365, we say, with access, so AD access, surely there must be some kind of client data on there, because that would be the Bitcoin mining is one thing, but surely it's going to be a GDPR type exercise.
Most realistic, if they are going through Office 365 Azure through an MSP, you're not looking at Bitcoin because that will be picked up quickly and shut down. That's not particularly profitable. It might be a side thing you do. You're probably not looking at the personal data. What you're looking at is delivering ransomware to each and every one of those hundreds of customers.
Payload.
Yep.
I like that.
That's where you make money off it.
Okay.
So in this company, they're going to give you, they've got an application that runs on your systems, and they're going to you're going to do an update which gives everybody the ransomware.
Yep. Or just deliver it to every single customer through email.
And I would also add, so I will add the AWS element to say that a number of customers have AWS single sign-on based on Office 365 admin.
Bespoke joiners, movers, leavers process, which is run through a particular AWS service.
Yeah, but even just AWS accounts. Look, I got that now, right? Which I love it. But actually, when you think about it, it does mean if my freaking AD account is compromised, they, you know, whoever has that can log in with single sign-on to a lot of our AWS test environments. Good news is I don't have production on my account, right? But so yeah, there you go, right? So yeah, so the MSP provides SSO via Azure AD too. So I think that also allows us to have that expansion. So for example, if you look at the ransomware, you could also look for files in the AWS to actually either delete or encrypt them, right?
Or encrypt, delete, or as Yesene has just pointed out, sell.
Yeah. And the coolest thing about this is we can say, right, that the attack starts with some weird AWS activity.
Yep. Yeah, if you want to go really niche, you can have it start with a crash report from one of your microservices.
But they wouldn't crash that, right?
Buffer overflow.
Yeah, but you wouldn't need that, right? If you look, so let me replay. So we're thinking about, so the attacker has compromised, right? So okay, I guess so. The attacker. So what about this? The attacker hits an admin, right, of Office 365, puts basically some malware on the box, compromises that person, right, with accounts. So the biggest mistake already is to have an admin of Office 365 of the cloud MSP, basically allowing himself to be compromised, who compromises his accounts, that allows the attacker to log in into Azure as one of the one of the admins.
Go with shared password disclosed through phishing. That's what is going to be 90% of the time.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So
that's the compromised credentials for the admin, and then it just escalates from there.
Okay, so the start, so the infection point is, you know, shared passwords, right, via phishing, right? Yeah, on the yeah, or compromised password via phishing, right?
On the MSSP, right?
Yes.
MSP.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, this is a compromised, you know, admin password, right? Because they're not using SSL, which they should, right?
So they're not using their own product, basically.
Well, you know, you'll be surprised, right? So unless we, I guess that's the question. Like, do we want to make it more complex? But actually, this is still realistic, right? Because we could say the account got compromised.
We can go complex and go down the whole APT route, or we can say this is what actually happens.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line is that you always have to assume that the account might be compromised. The question is, what do you put in place to deal with it, right? So okay, so the attacker compromises using phishing. But then look, if you look at the ransomware logic, then I guess what we have those two moments, which is the reconnaissance model, right, where the attacker is figuring out what to do, right, and that's what they do these days, right? They do reconnaissance for a day or a couple of weeks, and usually, if you detect them, they'll detonate quickly, right? Because now they know you onto them, right? So that could be part of our scenario. We could start our scenario in the middle of the reconnaissance.
Yep, first detection, how do you react? If you react in a way that does actually detect them, then the attacker team can go, okay, well, we've got it spread across 40% of the company now, let's detonate.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good question for the attacker. The attacker is, hey, do you detonate now? Do you wait a little bit? Now you may be being detected. Do you hold your horses for a little bit more? Or do you just, realize that this is the moment? So that could be one of the decision points for the attacker team to know.
So we're going to have a decision tree for each of these groups. And then depending on what someone else does, that information gets fed in.
Yeah. I'm just going to say from experience, we probably don't want to pre-plan too much of a decision tree. You want to have almost a
skeleton.
Let's go game. You want to have a GM for each team who can go, my team's doing this, what are your people doing?
Yeah.
Along the lines of mega game and so on. It lets them be much more adaptive to it.
And we should be feeding them some information during the thing. Additional information. We now discovered this.
You've spotted this log, you've spotted this information. We are talking about quite a large thing because you are going to need someone managing each team, even if that's just one person.
Yeah,
and you're going to need comms.
Yeah,
you need comms between those people.
Yeah, correct.
To keep it up to date between them and say, okay, the attackers have just hit go.
Yeah.
This is now what everyone else will be seeing.
Easy. When we have breakout rooms, as the host, I'm able to put a notification for all the breakout rooms. They see it as a pop-up.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that if we do it that way, you have one person in each breakout room managing that team and feeding in the information and taking out information, passing it on, and we just handle that in a back channel in Slack or something else.
So what about this? What about that? There's 2 Zoom sessions, right, that we have. One with us, right? So let's say because each of us represents a player, right? So one with us, and then if you look at the workflow, is everybody's on the master channel on the second Zoom, right? On the master environment, we brief everybody. Hey, here's the scenarios. Here are the first set of questions for each of you. Go into your breakout rooms, and each of us will be in one of the rooms, either giving more information or just providing some clarification. Right?
Yep.
Then based on that decisions, we can say, okay, now 20 minutes is over. Everybody goes back into the main room, and then we can give them the next piece of the puzzle. Meanwhile, if we are talking amongst ourselves, we can already define the next part of the brief. So basically, we already agree. So we know the decisions they're going to make before they announce it, right? Because we part of the group. So I can say, okay, so those guys are going to do this, they're going to do that. Then we can agree amongst ourselves what is the next piece of the puzzle. Right? And almost what are the next 2 questions that we're going to ask them.
And these are 15-minute cycles, are they, Dennis? So you go through 15-minute cycles. So you're going to go through 8 15-minute cycles.
Yeah, or 20 minutes, right? Whatever.
Has anyone ever played the game Diplomacy? I'm just wondering, it sounds a lot like it. You've got 15, 20 minutes for a move. Then everyone gets back together and all of the moves happen simultaneously. And then you break out and do your own negotiations again.
Sounds about right, man.
So 20 minutes together, 20 minutes in breakout, then 20 minutes together, 20...
I don't think you need 20 minutes together. I think you probably can do it in 10 minutes, right?
I'd say, 10 minutes together, and every now and then we want to have a break so that the people managing it all can take a breather and work out what they're doing next.
Okay.
Well, what I was saying is that we can do that, right, in those 20 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, because you'd only need the managers there at the beginning and end.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that, for example, let's say, so I would be on 2 Zoom channels, right? And they could always nudge me. I can always mute and say, hey, raise the hand or nudge me if you need me. So I'll be on a Zoom channel with my breakout team, and you guys are going to be on your, and then we all going to be on the Zoom channel, right? Where we all get to agree on the next set of moves. And I actually think that we should maybe script that a little bit to just think about what at least are the 5 events that we might see happening, so that we don't have to, make them all up straight away in a go. And
Oh yeah,
20 minutes
definitely an outline.
Yeah.
Sorry.
20 minutes is quite a long time, though, isn't it? I mean, if you're going to get through several cycles, do you want to make it a shorter period? I mean, I don't know how much detail you're going to go into, but I would have thought that 10 minutes, 15 minutes is probably better on those cycles, because I've done a few of these where, everyone kind of finishes in 5 minutes and then you're kind of waiting for the next thing to happen.
But I think it's interesting that if you have a number of people there, right, it will take a little bit of time to get everybody's opinion, right? Like in a way, you probably even just briefing everybody. Okay, what we need to do is A, B, C. Just that's going to take 2, 3, 4 minutes, right?
Okay.
So you're looking at maybe 5 minutes to drop in the new information and deal with any questions about it. And the answer to those questions might be, well, you don't know at this point.
Yeah.
Your next action can be, I want to ask the tech team to go and check those logs and get those details.
Correct.
20 minutes in the breakout room is different from 20 minutes to actually discuss it. Because knowing how breakout rooms work, you've got 1 minute for everyone to actually drop into it. You've got 3 or 4 minutes for everyone to catch up on what they're doing.
Yeah.
Then you've got some time, and then you've got maybe 2 or 3 minutes at the end for everyone to prepare for what they're doing going out.
Well, we could always say it's going to be between 15 and 25 minutes. And there's nothing wrong with us going, by the way, the time is now, right? Because
don't give them a specific deadline.
During an incident, you don't control the timing, right?
If the attackers organize themselves faster, or if the defenders organize themselves faster, things move faster.
Yeah, I think
deal with it.
Yeah, I like that idea, because basically what it means, if we feel that one group has already nailed it, right, and that is enough to move the story forward, we just tell everybody, okay, everybody jump into the main channel now, because we're going to give you the next set of clues.
Yep.
Even if you haven't finished.
Well, hey, real world, right?
If you haven't finished and your answer's not comprehensive and not effective enough, well,
that means you're still talking to each other, right?
Real life. That means your domain server just got compromised, and now you have to deal with that as well.
Yeah. So this would be cool.
Okay. So who's going to do what?
So, okay, on Monday, so you're saying that you want to do a threat modeling on this. I guess what we need to do on Monday is to map the company architecture.
Yeah, work out the company architecture, work out the threats, and work out the profile of the biggest threat. Because in the threat modeling, I am looking to cover some basic technical stuff, but also do PNG. So we can take the profile from PNG of the most likely attacker and make that the attacker profile.
What is PNG?
Persona non grata.
Oh, okay.
It is that customer profile, whatever you want to call it. It is that persona of, here's the person who represents whoever's going to attack us.
So both internal and external profiles will be more apparent after the threat modeling session.
Yes. Yeah. I think internal, if we're going with this sort of managed service company, internal is something we should probably spin up over the weekend so that can go into the threat modeling workshop.
What do you mean internal? Sorry.
As in the internal teams. Who are the internal teams?
Security.
How do they react? Who fronts each of the teams? What sort of capabilities do they have?
Could we just maybe give that to each of us? And or come up with, but you're right. I think we should come up with a persona. Do we have a channel for this?
So long as no one says, "Oh, I've got a full nation state backing me," I think we can just say, "Okay, who wants to be marketing? Who wants to be governance? Who wants to be security? Who wants to be DevOps?" I'm trying to think if we need any others. I mean, obviously there's finance and so on, but they're almost peripherals. They are business ops around it. They are incredibly valuable, but you don't need a team representing each area of that to deal with the incident.
Yeah.
So we've got maybe 5. You've got attacker, you've got human side, which would be internal human, so biz ops. You've got external human, so marketing, customer comms, security, and tech.
Slow down.
Yeah. So wait.
Attacker, finance, security, DevOps.
No, that's too. Well, yeah. Okay.
IT.
So okay, let's go back. Let's go back to the top, right? So you need management, right? Start with management.
Yep.
You got somebody who represents top level management. You got somebody who represents the security team.
Frontline tech.
Yes, IT. Well, IT, right? IT engineering, right? Or the engineering.
And
the IT operations side of things, right?
And customer facing.
Well, what about putting the customer instead of customer facing, right? Just putting the customer representative.
We both need them, right? We
Sorry?
both need the customer and someone who talks to the customer.
If you go with customer as a separate thing, then they could talk directly to management. That could be their interface. I mean, that's a realistic interface.
Yeah, unless we mix both, right? We could say there's one group that actually represents the two parties. Like, what do you tell the customers and what the customers,
Customer service. I mean, customer service. A proper customer service rep should be representing the customer.
Yes. Yeah. But I think it'd be interesting for this simulation to also have the customer representative, i.e., in this case, the clients. Because remember that the clients, especially in this scenario, play a big role because the clients might also have their security teams.
But how many people do we have available to run these teams?
Well, I think we shouldn't have more than 5 groups.
If we've got more than 5 people to sort of do the management and the back end or the back channel chatter about it, then that's absolutely fine, and I completely agree.
Call, right? So I'm one, Vida's one, you one, right?
Yep, I'm happy to.
Who else? Ben, you in?
We have Ben, we have Glenn.
Glenn, we haven't heard from you.
No, I'm just listening silently. I've
Are
got
you
some
in
questions.
Wesley Park?
Yeah, no, Bexley Park behind me. Yeah. Just thinking about some of the departments, do we also need to include legal, because there will be legal implications in any cyber attack? The question we mentioned the other day about, do you pay ransomware, or do you try to repair? That was a legal question that came up, and that sort of ties into the customer facing side of it as well, because you're gonna have to feed information to your customers at some point based on GDPR and stuff like that. So do we want that type of pressure put on the teams as well?
Do we want
contracts? What are reliable in our contract?
I really like that.
So
timelines to tell
do
them.
we want the option for some of these, rather than saying we need a team to represent them, we could just say we have one person who represents anything that doesn't have a team?
Well, I was going to say, let's actually group them together, right? So we could say, let's say, whoever represents management, he represents management, legal, and finance, because actually that kind of goes together, right? And then, for example, you could say that whoever represents IT actually represents IT and development, because it's almost like that's the doers, right? Element of that one, right? The security represents, security, risk, right? SOC, right? So we can then say that, those almost each persona kind of, almost represents a group. Maybe it's personas, right? Represents a group of functions. So for example, if I want to participate and I care about the legal, then I'm going to go into that room, which is the management, legal, finance room.
When we did continuity exercises with BBC, you'd have the 2 teams, one which was doing the technical fix and one which was doing the facing the customers. So I think that's what you're saying. There's kind of like there's a split that says someone's dealing with the outside world and someone's dealing with the problem internally.
Yeah, but I think it's important to say that, like, to capture, for example, the management decisions, right? Because
Yeah.
we're going to have some tough management decisions, right? For example, do you tell your customers? It's like, do you tell your clients what the hell just happened, right? Because they don't know yet, right? But they will
Yeah.
know soon. But that's
So
a really nice, tough decision.
you want at least 4 then. You want attacker, you want internal, external, and management, because the management are the interface between internal and
Yeah.
external, and they're the ones who will say, yes, we're going to tell the customers, and this is now the flak we're taking because we told them.
Yeah. So, okay, so if you look at that, we got attacker represents, so that's the attacker, right? We've got on internal teams, we've got management, finance, legal, we've got operations and development, and we've got IT and development, which kind of covers the 3 main bits. And then we have the clients, and that's 5.
Yeah.
And within those, right, you cover quite a nice area, but all of them are quite separate. If you think about it, the operational team are the ones who actually are going to have to freaking fix the things and get on with it, right? And they have actual production. The security team, handles from a security side the detection, the SOC. The management and the legal have to make the decisions and understand and ask those questions. And then you throw the curveball of having an attacker that can now react in different ways. And you have the clients who can actually introduce certain curveballs, right? So for example, if I was a client, I might argue, holy shit, I want my team there now, right? I want to know exactly what's going on. I want get my data out of it, right? Like literally there's a bunch of stuff that we can ask, what if you were a client, what would you do? But also interesting, what's your expectation, especially as the incident progresses? What's your expectation that you would like to see happening if you were a client of this? And that's really cool because, for example, even from Glasswell, I can already put individual members of my team that cover those areas, right? Especially in those rooms, because also, they can provide real information on how they will handle, that situation, right?
So, can you check the chat to see what I'm missing? Because I'm missing something.
So you got client, management, and legal. Attacker, techies. It's not techies, right? It's basically you got IT support, IT operations and development, and then the security team.
You've got internal, external, governance, and security.
Like your style, man. Look at that. With the cat there.
Yep, and an ice cream.
Yeah.
And when we say external, are we saying external facing people, or is it the external people, the attacker and the client?
You got teams representing. You can't do enter on this thing. Well,
yeah, I think it's Control Enter or Alt Enter.
No, so it doesn't work. Right. So you got that. You got the attacker. You got 3 is the business. This is C level, legal, finance.
You're almost grouping them into motivations.
Well, exactly. That's the point.
External is I want the customer to be happy, and that applies whether it's the customer or customer service or PR or anyone else. Internal is I want the system to run and not be compromised. Attacker is obviously I want to make money.
Yeah.
Almost certainly. Management is I want the business to survive, which isn't necessarily either purely keeping the customer happy or keeping the service running.
Mm-hmm. And then the security team, I want to keep this thing,
I want to keep it secure. I want to avoid damage to, honestly, individuals' data, the company. I've got to try and juggle all of this in my head at the same time.
And look, we can allow a bit of flexibility, right? So the security team could turn around and say, hey, like, good news that we've done our audit of AWS keys, right? Because we now know them, or they might not even ask that question. And if they haven't asked that question, the next thing that you start to experience is a massive, problem there, right?
Well, your security team are almost your wild card.
Yeah.
They could side with whoever they want or sort of sit in balance.
Okay, cool. So Didier, does that make sense? The 5 teams that you got there?
Yeah.
So let's just agree on the scenario. So the scenario is a phishing, basically the admin account of the the managed provider gets compromised, right? And it's that either by phishing, by blackmail, by beating the guy up, right? By compromising his machine, right? Away. So that account got compromised. The attackers go in there, log into Office 365, start looking for ways to infect ransomware and see what accounts and what emails they can control and what files on SharePoint, for example, they can infect, right? And they find that AWS is linked with SSO, so they start to look for in AWS accounts, right? And they start to basically use those tokens. And then we could say that the first warning sign is that one of the customers detected some weird AWS keys usage. Because that would happen, right? You will see. So, for example, we could say maybe an interesting variable here is that one of the customers is really savvy, right? So one of the customers is actually has a pretty good security team, is pretty reasonably okay, and they were paying attention, and they start to see some AWS keys being used, right, to access certain things that they're going, this is weird. They might say we're not fully sure if it's us or somebody else, but this doesn't look right.
So we received a call from the client.
Yes.
Without us detecting it.
Yes. I think that's a cool thing, right? So first part of the story is the client says, hey, I think this is weird, heads up, but we're seeing some weird activities going on. So that means the security team now gets to ask the question, what do you do? And actually, and even there we can ask the question, right, to each of the the different players, what exactly, in fact, what each of you going to do, right? So that's already a first good pass for them to come around and tell us what are the actions that they were going to do, right, from this point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Just going on, yes, NA's comment in the chat. Rather than having a security team, should we go with a governance team, and then they can define what they are? They could be legal, they could be security, could be compliance.
Well, I would put that in there, right? Shouldn't the security team contain that?
It's almost up to them what they contain.
And apologies, guys, I've got to drop for another call, but I guess we'll pick up on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
You too.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So I would be careful a little bit not to handicap this a bit too much, right? I know that some teams don't have cloud security provided, but also you have to remember that we're going to have individuals in the call that do work for a team. They do have resources, right? And again, like if we have a company that has hundreds of customers, realistically, well, you expect them to have a security team, right? If they don't, that's a bigger problem, right?
But it is the reality. It can be.
Well, you can, but I think you do want the security team to be able to do stuff, right? Because if the security team cannot then list, okay, we look at our SIM and we look at the logs and we did this and we did that, and then the exercise is not going to go very, very far, right? Because then the solution is to throw the towel and bring in an external company who knows what they're doing, right? Because that's what will happen if you think about it. In the real world, maybe we can do that, right? In the real world, there's a moment that they need to bring in extra resources, right?
We just give them the option. If they say, well, we're going to invoke our cyber insurance, we're going to invoke our incident response contract, fine, your security team is now an external team. They've got more resources, they've got more expertise. Carry on.
Okay.
That's one thing I think is missing here, though, is so we're expecting a lot of developers to attend this year. What's in it for the developer? There's, do we need to throw in an application vulnerability into this scenario as well? Because we found vulnerabilities in the configuration, let's say, and the use of shared admin accounts and that sort of thing, but we haven't really identified something that developers can get their teeth into and say, actually, there was a vulnerability in this application. That's how they got in.
That's actually a really good point. What about if we change the injection point to actually be an application security vulnerability?
You can have a chain, can't you? So you know, like it could be that they have found, you know, they've got it in, they've been able to like do their reconnaissance, and they've discovered a vulnerable application somewhere, and they want to use that to say, I don't know, maybe they want to use that to dump their payloads. I don't know, something.
Yeah, no, look, I think you hit the nail spot on, right? Like we're almost missing the obvious here. It's like, oh shit, you know, we should be having an AppSec element to this. But then that's the thing, right? So that's how they got compromised, right? So the compromise vector is insecure application. In fact, look, put it this way, right? What about this? The compromise vector is an insecure admin panel, right? Where they have elevation of privilege, right? In the admin panel from a customer. Even better, right? The injection is one of the customers gets phished, right? Which again addresses the malicious insider or not. So one of the customers' admin gets phished, right? So the attacker uses DAS credentials to go to the admin panel because they develop a custom admin panel for the managed service provider, right? And then from there on, they found an elevation of privilege that gave them access to all sort of other accounts, including the single sign-on capabilities. So we can then say that the application had, you know, from cross-site scripting, you know, had, you know, authorization blind spots, it had, you know, a bunch of vulnerabilities, right? That then caused the elevation of privilege. That is really cool.
Yes, NA says APIs, vulnerable APIs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. So we can basically throw a bunch of application security vulnerabilities, and that's really cool because it means that, you know, the hunt for patient zero should now start off, how is that possible? And I like that because the only thing that was bugging me on this one is that, you know, if you have Office 365 and you provide managed service providers, you're gonna have good admins, right? Because, you know, you'll be suicide, right? Like you would blow up. So you actually need people that know what they're doing to manage an Office 365 environment. So it's very unlikely that, you know, they'll have no 2FA and blah, 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 right? But if we say that the attack vector happened from one of the customers who didn't put 2FA because they didn't want to or whatever, right? And then the compromise happened through the application created by the developers of the MSP, that for me seems realistic. That is a realistic scenario, which also, for example, hits on the threat. And so on the threat model for Monday, we want to start here, right? Because now you need to look at the apps that they have in front of the MSP. And what I would do is I would throw that it's a multi-tenant environment from a management point of view. Does that make sense? So what you're saying is that they instead of developing multiple, for example, environments, each for each customer, they did what, you know, a lot of customers do, which is they have a multi-tenant admin environment that based on your login, you only see the data that belongs to you, but the back end is the same for everybody. And that's the blind spot.
Yep.
So that's cool.
One
That was
blind
brilliant.
causes the compromise.
Sorry?
Another blind discovers the compromise or the suspicious activity and reports to us.
Discovers suspicious activity. I wouldn't say discovers this compromise purely because they wouldn't know it's larger, or they don't know it's larger than them. They've just noticed something odd. I mean, it could be authorized activity from the cloud service provider who's not bothered to tell them.
So actually, maybe what's interesting is that we, and to be honest, this is not, you know, we can give multiple clues to multiple people, right? So we could say that one of the customers is reporting AWS keys, weird stuff, and maybe some extra malware, you know, an increased case of malware, right?
One of them's reporting that Chrome's reporting an error when they go to their admin panel.
Yeah. So you can have a couple of errors. You can have the developer saying that they're investigating a high number of errors on the back end, right? Which they're seeing a bunch of errors, but, you know, it's not insane, but it's a little bit odd. So they're investigating, you know, that thing, right? Which again should start to be the question: are we seeing an application level attack, right? And then, but the curveball is the AWS keys being compromised. That we think, hey, something happened over there, right? So the IT operations should be focused on how the hell are AWS keys being compromised, right?
That brings triage into it, which is great to have.
SOC team, internal, external.
Yeah, that's why I think we have the security team, right? So that's why the security team, I would put 5 people in there, 6 people, not too insane, but at least not, they should have a bit of a SOC.
Service provider, do you think they will have a SOC team internally?
They should.
They serving SMEs.
No, at the sort of size where you're serving SMEs, you have a dedicated SOC because it's part of the service that you offer.
Yeah.
It's part of the whole reason you can sell to customers, and you give them a nice tour of it and point out the 12 screens on the wall and say, here are our engineers. I've never been involved in this, definitely.
Yeah, I but I agree with you. I think it's realistically, especially in today's day, right? It's unrealistic that, for example, they wouldn't have a SOC team, right? Because the clients will put a lot of pressure on it, right? But I like
SMEs. They don't care about security. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but again, let's look. This is 2020, right? Let's again be realistic, right? They care a bit about security, right? They have a bit of security team. They have a SOC. They provide a service. Doesn't mean they're not going to get owned quite spectacularly, right? But I think again, let's make this a little bit realistic and at least give the company a good chance of defending themselves, right? Because again, we want the happy story here, right? We want a story that the defenders raise up the bar, right? And really limit the damage for the attackers, right?
Okay, so let's put these things together. So a client calls their account manager, whoever that is.
Yeah.
The account manager, who do they call? Ghostbusters? No.
Well, I mean, the account manager. Yeah, so the account manager, that's where he starts, right? So actually, no, that's the bit, right? So if anything, is the individual. So if you look at the multiple players that we have, right, you get them together and say, so the one that represents the client basically starts the session by saying, here's what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you think about logistically, the way this works is that we might explain the scenario, right, to everybody, and then we role play this. So whoever is the client will then say, here's what I'm seeing. I'm worried about this. And then whoever represents the developer saying, okay, by the way, we're seeing a bunch of errors, right, that we think is weird. And then
how do they correlate? How do they connect? They
don't have to, right? This is just information, right? This is information that is given to each of the players, so they decide what they're going to do next.
But are they connected to each other, or do they separately discover these?
Yeah, let's say they all discovered in the same time, right? Which is kind of what happens, right? When you have an incident, you get multiple clues arriving at the same time.
Okay, and who is triggering the SOC team? Are they also seeing something?
Yeah, the SOC team should see something, right? Because they should see some spike of activities or some weird stuff that they're investigating, right? I think that makes sense.
If you want to give a reason to blind the SOC team, then you've got DOS, DDoS, something that looks dramatic and is largely harmless other than being annoying, going on at the same time.
Yeah, I love it. Because I was actually thinking that the way to do this is also to distraction. So we can say that the attackers are going to do one or two things, which are going to be red herrings, right? So that's a good idea. So why don't we say that the attackers are starting a DDoS attack, right, on a couple of customers and the main website?
Doesn't even have to be DDoS. You could just say the SOC have just seen a massive increase in alerts. They've gone from 600 a minute to 6,000 a minute.
Yeah, but this is caused by the attackers, right?
Yeah.
So the attacker.
Deliberately caused.
Yeah, it's one to throw the, and that's interesting. So why don't I say this? So the attackers could be generating a lot of alerts on the individual customers' environments, right?
Or somewhere they just don't care about at all. But yeah, basically they're generating alerts somewhere.
Well, actually, the main website, the corporate website, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? So the corporate websites, which is all nice singing and dancing.
Corporate website does not matter from most of the security team, dev team, or even most of the customers. But from the point of view of management...
Oh, yeah. Yes. Correct. In fact, what about we take a level up? Is they deface the corporate website.
Yeah.
So from a business point of view, why are they doing this? If they
because you want to throw the security team in a tailspin.
Yeah, but they don't want to be discovered, do they?
Well, I guess that's the thing. So we could introduce this on phase 2.
If they're going ransomware, they don't care about being discovered. They care about being discovered early.
Yes.
The recent attacks, they're still in there before. When they do the attack, they're not in the environment. They're done with the environment.
Yeah.
They got all the things they needed, and they left the payload to run at a.
Yep, they've got their basic mass attack done. They've got their ransomware distributed, and now they're just playing around and seeing if there's anything else they can grab. It's turned from a planned attack into opportunism. So by the time it's detected, arguably there's not much you can do about the ransomware side. Okay. But that might be a bit depressing for a tabletop exercise.
No, but look, if we say, right, like, if you think about it, right, so we basically are saying that, I'm just, sorry, put this in here, AWS key and dev errors, right? So if we say that the first move, right, that happens, that the first scene of the play is that you basically have, you're seeing a big DDoS attack and defacement on the corporate website, right? Which basically, rings the bell. You have clients complaining that some AWS keys are having some weird behaviors, right? And you have the devs also saying that there's some logs on the back end that's a bit weird, right? And now we ask each of the players to say, what you do now? And the story here is the attackers have compromised the client, right? Admin, went to the admin console, not the website, the admin console, did elevation of privilege over there, generating errors because they don't know the back end. So you're always going to generate some errors, right? From there, start generating some, exploiting AWS, figure out that maybe they have been detected because, or they believe that they may make too much noise. They go into their phase 2 of the attack, which is throw in the dead fish, right? So do some activity over here so that the defenders don't look over here, to give them time enough to do the reconnaissance and then do the deployment of the payload.
Yep. Brute forcing against staff accounts, as yesterday has pointed out.
Yes, I like that. Staff accounts
locking people out.
So, for example,
but it really doesn't make sense. At recon, you really don't want to be distracting your target.
You do, but let's say in this case, the attacker, the team that is good,
they're past recon.
Yeah, they're past recon, but look, this is the thing. When we said that there's one client that is really good, right? They start to kill off the session. So basically, they gave the attackers a clue that they have been detected.
Yep, so they're keeping an eye on normal user activity. They've got something that alerts and they shut down. Yeah.
So they can tell the difference between a client who has no clue what's happening in AWS because they can go there, they're spinning off machines, they doing recon, and maybe another customer that suddenly they can, because you can also see, like if you have root on AWS, you can see what you are doing already in AWS, right? So if you're good at it, you can start to see, oh, these guys might be on me. So the attackers, right? Yeah, can basically say, we need more time, so let's throw, right, a scenario to keep everybody busy. So a good example from a defense point of view is if the defense team decides to shut down single sign-on to AWS. So for example, if they did that, they would prevent the ransomware on AWS.
So that's almost the kick of the scenario then, and then
Yeah.
everything goes to hell afterwards. So one customer who's completely outside all of the teams shuts down SSO to AWS, makes a phone call to the MSP.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And the attacker at that point realizes, okay, we might have alerted someone to something. Let's start the noise.
Yes. I like it.
And that's when we kick in and say, here's where it is up to here. Go play.
Yep. I agree with you. I think that's cool. And that's look, and that is believable. Right? That makes sense, right?
Yep.
Cool. All right, let's kind of write this down. And then so okay, so our deadline is on Monday. You need to map the architecture of the kind of MSP, right? And look at the threads on it.
Yep. On Monday, I will have basic interface points for the MSP, and we will do a threat model against those points.
Yeah. And then by Wednesday, so I think we should probably meet up or have another couple of sessions on Slack, right? Just to agree maybe on the first 2 or 3 moves, or maybe, you know, on this, and then try it out. Like, hey, you know, what can go wrong, right?
Well, we can always do a play test of it, see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the play test is on Wednesday. But I think we should run a couple of these, right? I think this could be really cool. So I think actually, so what you're saying is that maybe we should run a play next week too, by Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yep, I'm going to put a legacy system in there, Windows NT.
Yeah. XPs, man, XPs. Don't worry, they're still running in production.
NT 4.0.
Yeah, look, there's a whole chestnut.
I've got an OS2 warp disk around somewhere.
Did you remember the MSDN discs with the big thing?
No, I was CompuServe.
All right, cool. I think we have a plan, right? So actually, I think we need to do one session next week. I think we need to do a run through and maybe invite a couple of people too, right? But I think we should try to run the scenario at least once, right? Before we do it for real.
Do you want to do it Monday morning, maybe?
No. Like this could be like Wednesday or Thursday next week.
Okay, let me check.
Wednesday I can do. Thursday I can't.
Okay, let's try to do that Wednesday.
Well, Wednesday is the actual scenario exercise day.
No, that should be the week after, right?
Oh, true. Wednesday morning, 10, 11, 12.
That's the 10th, right?
That is the 3rd of June.
The 3rd of June. Yeah, 11. What's the options?
10. I think 10 is better even, because it's before anything else starts.
Yeah, if you guys, 10 is perfect for me.
I can do 10 if we confirm it right now.
Yeah, I'm good for 10.
3rd of June, Wednesday morning, 10.
And they should go. We haven't even talked about this on that dynamic schedule environment, right? So people thought that we already have enough Hey Summit stuff, right? So we need another. Maybe we don't even do it on Hey Summit on this one, right? But we need that way to do the dynamic schedule, you know, the half-an-hour blocks. So this can go in there. Yeah, let's think about it. But this will go in there, right? Because this is almost like a good example of an extra summit session, right? Just focus with a couple of individuals that come together.
It's in the training week, but it's going to be a summit session, a dynamic summit.
Yeah,
session.
dynamic session. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I need to get going
me
and
too,
sort out dinner.
This is great. Brilliant.
So
Great. I suggest I don't publish this because it's going to give all the clues away. So
yep.
No, publish it. Publish it.
No.
Fine. Look, hey, you know, if somebody reads it and has more information, good on them, right?
Given we're going to be taking a lot of the info from Monday's session about what the threat is capable of
Yeah.
and so on, that's the one not to publish.
Mhm.
Well,
Okay.
let's see. All right, cool. Brilliant.
All right then.
I'll start recording and we'll take it there. All right.
Okay.
See ya.
See it.